We're actually going to deploy this $5,000 life raft.
Some of these larger crossings, you have to have a life raft on board.
Tell you what, having that life raft is a peace of mind right now. Yes.
Because we're way beyond gliding distance from shore.
Most of us have never deployed a life raft. So we actually took the opportunity to get in the water, pop the life raft, see if we can get in it, see if we could flip it, see how that really works.
I'm gonna tie this on, you're gonna throw it into the water, and then you're gonna give it a big jerk and it should inflate.
I'm so glad Flight Chops was the one that decided to jump in the water because it was about 55 degrees, and me being from Miami, I'm not used to that.
Why am I doing this?
Flight Chops is Canadian, that's his element.
I've been lucky to experience a lot of different types of flight training, and the adventure flying courses with Jason and Howard from the Finer Points of Flying are top-notch.
The heart of what Jason and I do is really adventure training with an emphasis on the training part. We want pilots to come away from these courses having learned something and experienced things that they would not have otherwise, with lots of specific training about bad stuff that can happen to you in this kind of environment.
These workshops bring a mix of pilots with varying experience levels.
Oddly enough, it was a Flight Chops video of the mountain flying course that I first got to know Finer Points of Flying.
This one was a great series.
Is this the scariest thing we're gonna do? Yes. This is the scariest thing we're gonna do today.
We got a pile of amazing content on the mountain flying course, and it became a multi-part series.
My sister Chris and I have been flying as a family for over 35 years.
You come to this and you can't wait to go back. I've got a list, I gotta get this and I gotta get this, and maybe I need to sell my plane and get a bigger plane.
And this trip also yielded several episodes. In part one, Patrick and I flew from Seattle to Orcas Island.
I'm Patrick Romano with Backcountry Aviation. I was invited up here with Steve and CubCrafters to show off their airplane during this island excursion, do some overwater flying, and also do some short field flying and give people some of that experience.
That episode also covered the mission flying DA-40s into international airspace.
Don't cross any border lines. Yeah.
And the CarbonCub was here for me to do some advanced STOL training, but all the students got a chance for an introductory flight in this thing.
The Cub was just amazing. Real connection to the flying. You can really feel every gust because it's so light, but at the same time, there's so much power, and it's really good fun to fly the Cub like that. So the problem with that is I want to do it again. Yeah, I was watching it land earlier, and it was almost going backwards. You could get this idea that you could land it like a helicopter.
All right, you ready?
Yeah, hop up and away.
I just count potatoes. We got 2 potatoes, and then we got a 3rd potato and more.
Yeah.
Having been tail wheel flying for a few years now and already having covered the checkout process in these CubCrafters planes, I patiently waited for my turn to fly with Patrick, while even the teachers were becoming the students. It was fun to watch Howard have his first tail wheel lesson.
I have never been in a machine like that, and it caught me totally off guard.
There you go. You've got the airplane.
Okay, my airplane.
Gentle on the brakes, stick in the left.
The pilot, Patrick, who seems amazingly proficient, he said, okay, you're gonna count to 2, and on 2, you're gonna push forward, and then you're gonna count 1 more second and pull back, and we're airborne.
All right, we're gonna count 2 potatoes, we're gonna bring our tail up. So I'm gonna count for you, and then you bring your tail up. Ready?
I was literally going, say what? What now? What am I, one, huh? 1?
Go ahead, give us
Okay, wait, I'm unclear about who's controlling what.
You're in control.
Okay.
I'm just gonna tell you what to do.
Okay.
All right, power comes forward. A little bit of right rudder. 1 potato, 2 potato, tail up. Right rudder. All right, and we're airborne. Happens fast, doesn't it? Yeah.
And then the plane was in the air, and it happened so fast, I could not believe it. I've never been anything like that. I suppose you'd have to be an astronaut or a fighter pilot coming off of an aircraft carrier to experience anything like that.
That takeoff happens fast, doesn't it?
It was, yeah, unexpected.
For my flight with Patrick, we needed the life raft on board.
Like it was built for it, holy moly. So we're gonna do a little overwater flight. Exposed for a little while, we got the raft, so that's a nice little peace of mind.
We needed a longer grass strip for the STOL training, so I rigged a bunch of cameras, and then we flew over water to get to a place where we could work on really flying this thing slow.
When we came in here yesterday, you were carrying a little bit of extra energy, and so we're gonna try to get some of that energy out of you.
Hip rock.
I'm already checked out in this airplane and we're heading to do some advanced training. I asked Patrick what it was like to fly with people that didn't have any tail wheel experience.
It's kind of tough in these really, you know, turbulent winds kind of down low. It's just sitting in the back seat, you don't have as much control, you can't see as much. You're really guarded. You have to make sure that, you know, someone doesn't do something that you can't have any control over in the last second of landing.
I've never flown anything with this kind of power to weight ratio ever.
Well, no one has unless it's a fighter. It's the highest power to weight ratio of a civil airplane.
It's tough when it's this windy, you know, and you don't really know what people are going to do. And it's not like we're doing a traditional lesson, right? So you're just kind of hopping in the airplane, and I've done that all my career, so it's kind of normal. But when you get in these extreme conditions, it's a lot for hard work.
All right, why don't you give me some flaps once you get slow enough? Let's slow down a little bit here.
Traffic 2 Papa Alpha entering the downwind for runway 16.
There you go. Gentle, yeah, there you go.
Even with guys with a lot of flying experience, you get in these little light planes and 35 knot winds that are swirling around, and it's a lot of work.
And what do you like on short final?
Pretty slow. I don't really look at the airspeed, so I couldn't tell you. I look at the wing. I usually like to see my wing right about here.
Okay.
And amazingly, Patrick can guess the airspeed to the mile per hour using this trick.
This is probably around 40 miles an hour, I'm guessing.
Exactly there. Yeah.
Yep. So look outside, look at your wing. Okay, look at your nose.
Yep.
This is our descent profile. I don't know exactly how fast we're going down, but this is basically what we're going to be doing, you know, going into the field.
The next episode will cover this stuff in great detail, and yeah, the stall horn honks the whole time you're flying final. But let's get back to Howard flying an approach without the stall horn honking.
And we're just going to kind of hold a nice flare. We want to be lined up the direction we're going, so not a lot of side load.
Working traffic 7 2 Papa Alpha number 2. We've got the straight in traffic in sight.
Keep that flare, hold that flare.
Power out. About a 2 mile.
Hold the flare, hold the flare, hold the flare.
We feel high to me.
There you go. Happy feet. There you go.
As a flight instructor, I don't want to make a complete fool out of myself, but I will say that I actually hadn't realized I landed.
Nicely done.
Wow.
I'm not used to tail wheel aircraft. It's got those big Tundra tires. Seemed like we were really high, and it was so smushy landing. I thought maybe that was just ground effect. It took me literally another second or two to realize we were actually on the ground.
I'm looking forward to your talk. I do a lot of these clinics, and people always ask me stuff. I'm always like, I'm not that guy. I'm teaching you to fly.
No, I mean, hopefully it'll be group participation.
So for my flight, the closest suitable strip we could find was actually on a different island.
Tell you what, having that life raft is a peace of mind right now.
Yes.
We had a solid 5 or 6 minutes flying over water on this flight, and even that short time felt pretty vulnerable.
Some of these larger crossings, you have to have a life raft on board. Most of us have never deployed a life raft, right? So we have Howard here, fortunately, with all of his years of sailing experience, all of his years of flying experience, all of his years of medical and rescue experience, right? So we actually took the opportunity to get in the water, pop the life raft, see if we can get in it, see if we could flip it, you know, see how that really works. And the idea is that you've just seen a little bit of it, you've prepared, you're kind of ahead of the game so that you feel confident when you come up here and do this kind of stuff with your family.
I'm going to tie this on, you're going to throw it into the water.
I thought it was awesome. I carried them in corporate flying when we'd fly over the Gulf and stuff, and I always thought, man, if I ever had to use that, I wouldn't know how to use that. So I was really intent on getting over there and watching it. It was super cool. I was really glad I did.
And then you're going to just pull. This is going to get really long, and then you're going to give it a big jerk, and it should inflate. Make sure we are holding it or attached to this line before we deploy it, because once a life raft deploys, it tends to sort of skeeter away with the wind. And there have been many situations where people just said, we got a life raft. Yeah, and the thing's just long gone.
And of course, somehow, they convinced me to be the first one to jump in.
Why am I doing this?
I'm so glad Flight Chops was the one that decided to jump in the water because it was about 55 degrees, and me being from Miami, I'm not used to that. Flight Chops is Canadian, that's his element.
Okay, jump in and hold on to the line.
But I wasn't alone. CFI Thomas, contest winner Chris, and Jason joined in for a refreshing dip.
I thought they'd like blow up slowly, but that thing was fast. I'm glad I wasn't in the water with you.
It's like this little bag, right? You throw it in the water and then boom, it had like a structure to the ceiling. It had all these tools and equipment inside. It was easier to get into than I thought it was gonna be.
That's the ladder right in the front. The life raft, this is kindly donated by WINSLOW. I have no connection to them. You can be the judges by reading reviews online and such, but WINSLOW LifeRafts almost uniformly come out sort of at the top of the heap. Yay!
This is not so bad in here, I think. So once we got in there, I felt cozy, especially once we zipped that. I felt like, you know, with 2 or 3 people in there, it'd be fine. So that was a really great learning experience.
There should be a bag in there with survival gear. I don't know how much they put in for the demo. Okay, so go ahead and open up, see what's in there.
So this is the survival equipment, we're dead!
It's a demo.
Obviously, the real kit is not bubble wrap. For links containing more information, please check the description of this video.
We have a water maker back at camp that I'll show you how to use. Some of the better life rafts might have a desalinator. There's gonna be a paddle in there. There's gonna be a rope. There's gonna be a light. There's gonna be a fishing kit. And there's gonna be a sponge. When you talk to pilots that have had emergencies, they'll often tell you their plane sank and they swam out and there they were, and all their gear.
For the overwater flight, Patrick had considered that issue and how we'd get to the life raft quickly.
Well, I was glad we brought the life raft. I did a trip last year with just a personal flotation device and it was totally exposed and it was uncomfortable. I had a pit in my stomach. So I was glad we had the life raft in there, like genuinely for those 6 minutes where, you know, nothing's gonna happen, but if it did, it was good to have it in there. You know, getting it out of the back of the Cub, we were probably, if something happened and we did ditch, you're probably cutting it out. Not a big deal, we both had knives on it.
So do you want to brief the procedures for this place? Well, first we'll do an inspection pass.
Yeah, well, I think the thing to honestly do is land and hop out and see kind of what the temperature is, you know, see if there's people glaring at us or whatnot.
We'd attempted to call in advance, but there was no answer, and we wanted to be sure we were not imposing by doing a bunch of touch and goes without asking.
Okay, so I'm going to read you the remarks here. When able, land to the north, depart to the south. Traffic pattern west of the field. Noise abatement procedures in effect. So basically we want to stay over the water. So we just want to do everything to the west. So we want to stay over the water on this side. So that will be our goal.
You guys might want to try zipping this up to get out of the weather and see how that goes.
Oh, this is nice!
Hey, are you guys warm enough to try inverting it, at least a couple people, and see if you can flip it?
Okay, I'll demonstrate getting out.
Well, we need at least one person, so get out first and I'll flip it.
Okay,
Thomas was the brave one who got in for a second time, and I gave him the chesty cam to capture it.
That was definitely probably the highlight of this trip for me, getting to actually see the life raft deploy. I mean, when else are you going to get to see that?
And you'll see if it happens to deploy inverted, flipping it over can be harder than you imagine, and there are a few tricks to avoid, for example, hitting your head with a CO2 cylinder. Can you kick it out a little ways, Thomas? Okay, get your knees and just climb that orange strap.
Thomas maneuvered the CO2 cylinder to the bottom. You can see it's pretty big. You wouldn't want to get hit in the head with it.
Nice.
wow.
The whole process of getting into that raft was pretty straightforward.
All right, round of applause for all the swimmers.
Even if you don't plan to fly over water often, there are affordable ways to carry a life raft for occasional trips.
With life rafts, they usually have to be certified every so often, so having to just rent them and not have to worry about that is much easier. Normally you can find a local company that can rent a life raft to you. They'll usually deliver it right to your FBO and it'll be there waiting for you for your departure.
And having it on board definitely made this flight a lot more enjoyable.
We will make this an inspection pass.
Okay, so I'm going to go a little bit over to the right so we can look at it.
Okay.
Because that warns people too, you know. The short takeoff and landing training with Patrick definitely warranted its own episode, so that one's coming soon. Thanks so much to Patreon supporters and sponsors for helping us make this content. It's a lot of work, but it's really rewarding to share it. And as planned, we stopped and shut down to talk to the locals before we proceeded to do our training flight. And of course, they were completely welcoming and gave us lots of interesting tips about the local area.
Cool.
All right, guys.
Hey, thank you so much.
Please visit flightshops.com for hundreds of other episodes and to play the monthly contest. And as always, keep your flight chops sharp.
You see people in Alaska with these big vests full of stuff. For me, it's kind of hard to fly like that. So there's got to be some compromise. I don't have the answer, but something. I have learned that you cannot compete with a 206 or 210 at full RPM on takeoff. Okay.